I think preface what I have to say about what the law has, what the law should have, by talking about two contexts in India, and I think reference was made by Ganesh to some of it. The first is that we have many laws on mediation, more than 20 actually, and when we talk about a law in mediation, we need the law that will sort of address inconsistencies and problems in these laws. So what we need is an umbrella law. The second is what should this law have? What is the function of this law? But before I get into that, to answer the first part of your question, I, for one, don't believe there is a difference in the policy sense, of the term, in terms of the regulatory sort of approach. I don't believe there is a difference between mediation and conciliation, and I, for one, think that private mediation has been governed by Part 3 of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act till now. And it requires, or it expects, it builds into the law certain expectations on, or certain responsibilities on the neutral, which is that, it also says you need to have an agreement to conciliate. You need the conciliator to weigh in on, what has been shared in terms of the dispute by the parties, and to weigh in on proposals for settlement, discuss that with the parties, refine it, and that's the responsibility of the mediator or the neutral. And the other thing that the Act gives is actually recognition and enforcement of the settlement agreement, because it says that it will be akin to an award, an arbitration award on agreed terms, and it will be enforced in the same manner. I don't think that's a very satisfactory way of dealing with it, given the nature of the mediation process. That it's very different, like Justice Sikri pointed out. It's adjudicatory here; it is self-determinative. So I'm not sure the present approach in Part 3 of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act is satisfactory in how you enforce mediated settlement agreements. To me, mediation, and I think this is the first function. So we have done conciliations under Part 3 of the Act, independent of the court annex system. We have followed the process prescribed by Part 3 of the Conciliation Act, and we have arrived at settlement. So I wouldn't entirely agree that there is no private mediation, or that there is nothing available to enforce private mediation. I think there is a regulatory structure available to us even as we speak today. As far as court annex mediations are concerned, I think it's clear that it goes back to the court passes a decree. Courts like the Kerala High Court and the Delhi High Court have clarified matters enormously, both in terms of the permanent lok adalats, in terms of criminal complaints that are compoundable, and ensured that these are enforceable. So there is a lot of, I think, jurisprudence that is developed here, to tighten mediation processes and their enforcement. Nevertheless, I also believe that we need a uniform law. We need the uniform law, I think, for about 5 or 6 functions that are lacking, and the confusion that abounds. The first is what Ganesh referred to. What is the mediation process? And I think we need clarity in that. And we need to clarify, and I would differ from Ganesh here, we need to clarify what the process of mediation is. The process of mediation is this, that parties to a dispute enter into a discussion with a view to resolve their disputes. They're assisted by a neutral. The neutral doesn't have the power to impose a settlement or a resolution on the parties. And the fourth is that this is a voluntary process. So when you take these aspects, conciliation fits in just as well. It's just that you have additional responsibility that the neutral has. It's been the approach the world over, and exemplified in the Singapore Convention, that we will use the expression mediation, but this is an all-embracing expression. This will cover conciliation. It covers any process by whatever name called that falls within these elements of what the process is. So we need a law now to say that, this is what mediation is. It will not distinguish from conciliation, because given that these functions and these processes are the same in mediation and in conciliation, I think having separate policy frameworks in terms of what the process is, what the concept is, or what the outcomes are, and the measures for enforcement, I think will cause a lot of problems. If you have, for instance, the neutral taking a more active role, what we call evaluative mediation, where the parties want the mediator to sort of assist in assessing how things stand technically or legally, would that be conciliation? So we need to make things clear for parties who are looking to resolve in their own ways their disputes. Self-determination is key, and we need to provide as many facilities as possible to ensure that this end is reached. So that's the first sort of aspect, and there's chaos in the regulations now. You have the Conciliation Act, and you have Section 89, which says mediation and conciliation is treated differently. The Supreme Court in the Salem Bar Association case made a distinction, said mediation would be under Section 89, while conciliation would be under the Arbitration Conciliation Act. You have the AFCON's judgment, which says both are synonymous. You then have for instance, the Commercial Courts Act, which says that, it calls it pre-institution mediation, but the effect is conciliation and enforceable under the Arbitration Conciliation Act. So, where do you have now the recent Farmers Acts that have been passed last month provide for a conciliation board, but there's no reference to a neutral there. So that these words are being bandied about enormously, and we need clarity, and that's the first function of the law, as I see it. The second, I think, would be to articulate the rights and responsibilities of parties in terms of volition, in terms of confidentiality, in terms of how they would, what their rights are going into mediation, what their expectations are of a mediator, which takes me to the next aspect, which is the responsibilities of the mediator will be clarified here. I think we will also probably, this will be a good time to, reflect on whether we need to accredit mediators. Do we need qualifications for them? What are the pros and what are the cons? And what their responsibilities will be, as mediators. The next aspect I think that the law should address is how do you recognize the mediated settlement? How do you enforce it? What is the status you give? The Singapore Convention has taken a sui generis sort of approach. This is a mediated settlement agreement, and it will be enforced as such. We don't rely on contract. We don't rely on an arbitration award or a judgment. We give it a sui generis treatment. So is this what we would want for our settlement agreement? But we certainly do need to sort of bolster the ability for a party to enforce the settlement agreement if there is an issue. Normally there isn't, because parties have crafted this and there is generally no issues with, implementing it. But were such a need to arise, we have the law that provides for it. The next aspect that I think the law would cover is bringing the Singapore Convention into our domestic law and providing for enforcement of international mediated settlement agreements that arise from commercial relationships. The last part I think that the law should provide for, and I would expect that to be there in the law, is a provision for enforcement of cross-border settlements that are not commercial in nature. This could cover custody, possibly. This could cover, property-related transactions. This could cover insolvency, which is, even in terms of regulation, we lack a law on cross-border insolvency. But it's been put to good use, by reaching out to the person who's in charge of the assets of the company outside the country. So these are aspects that, the grounds, the provisions for enforcement of mediated settlement agreement that is not commercial in nature would address. And I think it would be separately addressed because there are considerations apart from, I don't think it's as sort of narrow and clear as it would be in the case of a commercial settlement agreement. There are a couple of sort of issues that I think need to be addressed in the law, which would look at, amendments to other laws. One is in the Limitation Act. The time taken for mediation is not excluded. The second would be the Contract Act and the provisions on restraint of legal proceedings. Section 28 presently covers arbitration but does not cover mediation. So if there is an agreement to mediate, we don't want it to be challenged or questioned on the basis that this is an agreement that is in restraint of legal proceedings. I think we also need some cohesion between what the law for mediation says and what other laws say. And I take the example one of Section 29 capital A of the Arbitration Conciliation Act, which says that you complete the arbitration within a year of pleadings being completed. This then, forecloses an attempt at mediation once pleadings are complete. We have also in the Commercial Courts Act very tight timelines for the proceedings in court for commercial disputes, which forecloses the ability of the court to refer the matter to mediation once these proceedings have started. So I think we need to sort of look at this more holistically, and I'm hoping our law will provide for all of that.